Today's video is going to introduce a brand new unit of study for 8th grade ancient world history. We're going to look at the 5 major world religions in the ancient world, and they are still around today, and all of them are still major religions in the world. And they are Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. We're going to look at them in that order, and we're going to start off with the one that is farthest away from the experience of 99% of the students that I teach. So the one we're going to look at first should be furthest away from what many of you have ever heard of, and then we'll work toward the end to the one that most of the students that I teach are at least somewhat familiar with. But first, the first thing that we have to do before we look at the religions is we need to have a word about respect. Respect is what I'm going to call the unstated objective. If you look in the Alabama State Course of Study, you don't see the word, learn to respect other religions. You don't see that term or that idea. But it's there and it's important. So what I want to do is give a word here in the beginning about respect in the academic setting. Now, you should be respectful every day of your life. But this is about school. And so what I want to talk about is how do we show respect in the academic setting. It is important to know that people take faith very, very seriously. In the ancient world, it was true. Today, it's true. Also, you may not know that the person sitting next to you is a practicing Hindu or a practicing Buddhist. You may not know that this person is a Muslim, a person who practices Islam. And so, since we don't wear these labels on our shirts or tattooed on our foreheads, to save yourself a lot of embarrassment, to make sure that you don't put your foot in your mouth. There are some basic things that we can keep in mind about religion that we're just going to make life easier. And it's all basically summed up in one bottom line idea. In the academic setting, just because someone has a belief system that is not like your belief system, it doesn't mean that person is wrong and their thoughts are invalid. Now, in the academic setting, in school, what we try to do, especially in history, since it's about people, is we try to understand the facts. These religions are that people believed them is a fact. Now, that doesn't mean that everything about these religions is fact, but it means the people believed them. That's a fact. And it's interesting when you go through history trying to figure out why people have done what they've done. Oftentimes, it is that unquantifiable I believe or they believed. And so the faith of a person in the past or right now is relevant. And it's important, and it should be taken into account. We should try to understand it. And in the academic setting, whether it be learning about the beliefs of a group of people in the past or learning about things that might have to do with our classmates. When you get to the high school, you could have a classmate that is a Hindu or a Buddhist or is a Muslim or maybe even a practicing Jew. And so the way that we exercise respect is that we simply know that just because someone has a different faith system does not mean in the academic setting that everything they do or say is automatically wrong. That attitude is not conducive with an academic environment. Academics and lack of respect simply don't go together. So we need to make sure that we understand enough about these religions so that we don't embarrass ourselves, or worse, so that we're not disrespectful. So let's remember to be looking for information so that in the future we can conduct ourselves in a way that is respectful. The next thing that we need to understand, we're going to start off with Hinduism. What is Hinduism? Well, Hinduism is the ancient religion. It's been around a long, long time. And in a moment, I'm going to explain what I mean by a long, long time. But Hinduism has been around a long, long time. There are millions of practicing Hindus all over the planet Earth now. The religion began in ancient history in modern day India, on the subcontinent of India. Now, the page numbers that are going to be relevant in this, looking at this religion, are going to be like 259, 257, 258. The chart on page 255, which is going to be important for understanding the social caste system in ancient India, which we're going to come to in a moment. That's where we are in your state provided textbook. So, how old is Hinduism? Yes, Hinduism is all the old. In fact, Hinduism is prehistoric, which essentially means, as we know, that there was not a system of writing to chronicle the beginning of Hinduism. It is prehistoric, before writing. Now, in India's case, we're talking about the language of Sanskrit. The very best that I can do, and remember, this is not optimal conditions anyway. The very best that I can do right now, if you were wondering how old is Hinduism, is to let you know that thousands and thousands of years ago, there were a group of people who were north of the Himalaya Mountains in the area that is today China and bordering on Russia and moving around, a nomadic group of people called the Indo-Europeans. Now, these Indo-European people, some of them were a small group of people known as the Aryans. These Aryans moved through mountain passes in the Himalayas, and they came into contact with the people who were native to the Indian subcontinent. The belief system of the Aryans and the belief system of the native Indian people already on the subcontinent, when they mix together, that will create Hinduism. So this is way before the writing system. Eventually, in writings such as the Upanishads and the Vedas, you will have these oral traditions that have been passed down probably for hundreds of years, written down. But the answer to how old is Hinduism is very. Hinduism is extremely old. Okay. Now, the next thing that we need to understand, and probably one of the functionally, if you're just trying to take it apart and look at it, functionally, one of the most important parts of Hinduism is understanding the social caste system in ancient India. So let's think about a caste system. What is a caste system? What's that about? I've never broken an arm or a bone. But from what I understand, if I were to, there are two bones in the arm here. If I were to break one of these bones, I would not be in for a good time. Because what they would do is they would take me to the doctor, give me a couple of aspirin for the pain, and then comes the unpleasant aspect of healing the broken bone, which is known as setting the bone. What they have to do is they have to get the bone that is broken and misplaced back where it's supposed to be. I understand this is not a good time. But once they get it back where it needs to be, your bones will grow back together. Your body has an amazing capacity to heal itself, and bones will grow back together. However, to make sure that nothing moves or shifts or your arm doesn't grow back crooked, they will put your arm in what is called a cast. The cast does not heal your arm. The cast makes sure that the bones that are set don't move, and everything grows back the way it's supposed to. So the idea of a cast is no movement. And in the Indian caste system, that is 100% the case. There's a chart on page 255 in your textbook, and it shows you 5 different groups, or the word is Varna, in the Indian caste system. Now, the ones at the very top are Brahman. They are the priests. That's the top of the top. Now, according to the chart, if you look at it, it looks like the Sudra are the bottom. They are not. Beneath them, there is an unwritten, untouchable caste. They are, in history, they've been known as the pariah. They are the people who handle dead bodies. They handle garbage. They cannot go into temples. They cannot go into schools. The chances of them getting any medical help if they get sick is very, very low, because the doctors are in a higher varna or a higher place on the social caste system. They're not going to go down there. If you are around a person who's in the untouchable caste, you become ritually unclean. and you have to go through ceremonies to become purified. You can't even be around them. So the Indian social caste system, the Brahmins at the top and the Sudras not the bottom, the untouchable are the bottom, pariah are at the bottom. Now, today they're referred to by a Sanskrit word which means oppressed, and they were in ancient history oppressed. But this group is a caste. This grouping of people in India, it's a caste, it's a pyramid, very few at the top, more and more the further down you go. And you have to stay in the caste that you're born in for the rest of your life. There's no upward mobility and no downward mobility. Who you marry, the job that you have, and the marriages were arranged at this part of at this point in time in this part of the world. But who you marry, the job that you have, the friends that you have, the places that you go, all of this is decided by your caste. And there's no movement. It's extremely important to understand. So now that we understand a little bit about the super ancient origins of Hinduism, all the way back to where the Aryans were moving through the passes in the Himalaya and they mixed with the native people of the subcontinent of India, and that eventually becomes Hinduism. And we understand the caste system, that you can't move. You're there, you're born in it, and that's where you are. If your parents were that, that's what you are. Now we're ready for the phrase. I said this phrase in the Zoom, and I'm now going to say it, and then we're going to unpack it briefly. And here it goes. In Hinduism, you have to follow your Dharma to get good karma, to be reincarnated into a higher Varna, so you can be reunited with Brahman. That's how it works. So let's take those apart. Let's start on page 259, and let's look at the idea of Dharma and karma. Your Dharma in Hinduism is your to-do list. Every Varna, and there are little groups, hundreds of little groups in each Varna called Jati. But every Varna and every Jati has, according to the sacred Indian writings, things that you have to do. Your responsibilities, prayers, sacrifices, the way that you're supposed to live. That is your Dharma. And so it is, for everybody in every caste, there are things that you have to do. That is your Dharma, and you must follow your to-do list. Hinduism is very, very much a system of works. You work, and you do this, and you do that. So that is your Dharma. It is your responsibilities, depending on where you are and what Varna and what Jati. Then you have karma. Now, the best way to describe karma for 8th grade ancient world history would be using the word consequences. If you follow the list of things that you're supposed to do, the prayers and the sacrifices and the not committing evil acts, which is part of all of them, killing and stealing and things like that. If you follow your responsibilities all the way through, then you get good consequences. If you do not follow your Dharma or your list of things to do all the way through, or if you commit evil acts, you get bad consequences. And it's important to understand that bad consequences will have an effect on what comes next. So your Dharma is your to-do list. Karma are the consequences that you get through a lifetime of either doing what you're supposed to do or not doing what you're supposed to do. Not doing evil acts or doing evil acts. Okay. Next, you follow your list of things that you're supposed to do to get good consequences. Then you have the word reincarnation. Now, Hindus believe that when a person dies, their soul, the part of them that makes them who they are, not this meat suit, but who you really are, Hindus believe that the soul is reborn into another body somewhere else on the social caste system, in this Varna system. Now, if you followed all your responsibilities and completed all your responsibilities and gotten good consequences, if you follow your Dharma and get good karma, then you are reincarnated, or your soul is born into the body of someone in a higher Varna. So you follow your Dharma to get good karma, to be reincarnated into a higher Varna. This does also work the other way. If you are bad, or if you committed evil acts, or if you didn't follow your Dharma, you could move down. But in Hinduism, if you follow your to-do list, you get good consequences. Then your soul is reborn into a body that's a little bit higher, and there are thousands of jati from the very, very top to the very, very bottom. And so everybody is working their way up. Where are they going? Well, that's the last part. So you follow your list of things, your responsibilities, to get good consequences, so your soul can be reborn into a body that's on a higher place on the social caste system, to be ultimately reunited with Brahman. Now, the idea of Brahman it's way different from anything that most of my students have come in contact with. If you look on page 257, the bottom of 257, top of 258, you can read some information about Brahman. But essentially, Hindus believe that Brahman is the one universal spirit. It is where everything that has a soul, has life, is from, and where all souls are trying to get back to. So if you follow your list of responsibilities and you get good consequences, the soul can be reborn into a body that's in a slightly higher varna, or the next jati up. And so eventually, after thousands of lifetimes, your soul can be reunited with the one universal spirit. That's where all souls are coming from. That's where all the souls are trying to go to. And that's the phrase. In Hinduism, you follow your Dharma to get good karma, to be reincarnated into a higher varna, so you can be reunited with Brahman. Vital in understanding this, number one, just like with all the religions, is going to be respect. Some of this is way outside what most people that I'm talking to right now have experienced, and that's okay. But in the ancient world, there were people who believed this, and because they believed it, their lives were formed around it, and their decisions were made because of it. It's important to remember. The social caste system does seem cruel from the outside. I do need to mention, however, that in Hinduism, the people at the top, because it is believed that they have lived hundreds and hundreds of lives and followed their dharma and gotten good karma, and they've been reincarnated into a higher varna, the people in the higher castes are treated better than the people at the lower caste. Now, in the year 2020, an American would look at this and would just decry the injustice. But we have to understand that according to their religion, the people at the very, very top have worked on this for hundreds and hundreds of lifetimes. And this is simply a reality of their life. Also, remember the caste system, what you're born into, that decides where you marry, it decides your job, and it decides who your friends will be. So that's your introduction to Hinduism. It might explain a little bit about how vegetarianism, or looking at things that are alive, I don't know how that works with plants, but vegetarianism, looking at things that are alive, not so much about eating the animals. Can you move down to become an animal? Possibly. How far could you go down if you don't follow your Dharma? Does a bullfrog have a Dharma? These are all really, really good questions to see how much higher things go. And it'd make for a good class discussion if we could have class. Maybe we'll talk about it in Zoom. But for now, I want you to focus on that phrase, because knowing where it came from, the social class system, and that you follow your Dharma to get good karma, to be reincarnated into a higher varna, so you can ultimately be reunited with Brahman, there's your introduction to Hinduism.